Well, it's not unusual to hear a crime story during our newscast, but what about an unusual story of crime?
You told us you want to know what kinds of crimes are happening in our area and what's working to curb crime in our communities. So we're taking it a step further. We're showing you unique stories of how you or your neighbors help investigators solve any types of crimes. And in today's story, we're introducing you to an Uber driver in Charlotte County who ended up being the key to cracking the case. William Fisher was driving for Uber for about 6 months.
I had a lot of people, a lot of really good customers. I loved that job.
It got to the point where he had some regulars. One of those regulars was this guy.
Quite a few times in a 2-week period. He was a nice guy. He was a real nice. We've actually became sort of friends.
But this story isn't one of friendship. It's a story William wishes he didn't have to tell. And for William, it started when his son called him up.
He calls me and said, "Dad, what did you do?" I said, "Why?" He says, "Well, your face is all over the sheriff's page."
That's when William went on Facebook and saw his own picture, along with that passenger's, posted on the Charlotte County Sheriff's Office page in reference to a theft, asking anyone who knows who they are to give the Sheriff's Office a call.
There I was alongside this gentleman.
The Sheriff's Office says William's passenger that day stole 3 pieces of jewelry worth more than $1,100 from this Lone Star pawn in Port Charlotte.
Used some distraction methods to remove some items from the counter that just weren't secured and was able to kind of remove like a glass case. The footage was of the person committing the theft, but that person was also in the company of an older gentleman, and they weren't sure what the connection was.
William ended up being the missing piece, leading detectives to cracking the case. Back in November, he says he picked up Scott Humbert and took him to Lone Star Pawn.
He had some jewelry, and he had some kind of instrument or something he wanted to pawn. I was looking for a guitar case myself, so I went in with him.
When they didn't have what he was looking for, William went back out to his car to wait.
He was in there quite a while.
The Sheriff's Office says the suspect came out of these front doors of the pawn shop, then came to his Uber car, got in without the driver of the Uber car even knowing what happened inside.
He came out and he says everything was good and let's go. And we went home. That was the end.
So he thought. A few days later, that's when his and Humbert's photos were posted on the Sheriff's Office social media.
It was a horrible feeling, especially for that. Never done a thing in my life.
Within minutes, we were getting messages from people who had used the older gentleman as an Uber driver, and they were almost vouching for him and saying what a nice guy he was.
My customers were calling me and stuff saying, "What did you do?" I said, "Nothing."
William called the Sheriff's Office and explained what happened. He says he went down to the station to answer detectives' questions.
Detectives worked through his Uber records for that day and just were able to identify who the person was who had used him, by the fare records.
She says the Sheriff's Office immediately removed William's photo from Facebook and arrested Humbert for grand theft. William says he had no inkling that day of what investigators say happened.
You felt like you've been used and played with.
Still, he knows he did the right thing, helping investigators in cracking the case.
You did your job. I didn't know he was like that, but you never know who people are.
And Katie Heck from the Charlotte County Sheriff's Office says this case is just a perfect example of how much social media has really changed the way investigators approach and solve crimes, giving them an immediate reach to a lot more people in our communities.